Yechezk'el, Ezekiel chapter 45. When you divide the land by lot for inheritance, you are to set aside an offering for Adonai, a holy portion of the land. Its length is to be 25,000 cubits, that is, 8 miles, and its width 10,000, 3 miles. This entire region is to be holy. If there is to be reserved for the holy place an area 875 feet square, with 87.5 feet for open land around it, alongside this region you are to measure a length of 8 miles and a width of 3 miles. In it is to be the sanctuary, which will be especially holy. It is a holy portion of the land. It is for the Kohanim priests who serve in the sanctuary, who approach to minister to Adonai. There will be a place for their houses and a place set aside for the sanctuary. A portion 8 by 3 miles will be owned by the Leviim who serve in the house. It will also have 20 gatekeepers' rooms. You are to give the city possession of an area, alongside the offering of the holy portion, 1.5 feet by 8 miles. It will be the whole house of Israel. The prince is to have the territory on both sides of the holy offering in the city's holding. It will extend westward to the western border of the land and eastward to its eastern border, and the length from the far side of one of its 2 parts to the far side of the other will be the same as the length of one of the tribal portions. His position in Israel will be limited to this, and henceforth my princes will not wrong my people, but will give the land to the house of Israel according to their tribes. Adonai Elohim says this: Princes of Israel, that should be enough for you. Get rid of violence and looting, do what is right and just, and stop evicting my people from their land, says Adonai Elohim. You are to have honest, balanced scales, an honest ephah, a 1 bushel dry measure, and an honest bat, a 5-gallon liquid measure. The ephah and the bat are to contain the same volume. The bat is to contain 1/10 of a homer, and the ephah is to contain 1/10 of a homer. The homer is to set the standard for measurement. Also, the shekel is to be 20 gerahs. Your manna will be the sum of the 20 shekel piece, a 25 shekel piece, and a 15 shekel piece. This is the offering you are to make: 1/6 of a bushel from every 10 bushels of wheat, and you are to give 1/6 of a bushel from every 10 bushels of barley. The law for olive oil is to be 1/2 gallon from every 50 gallons, which is the same as 10 bats or 1 homer, since 10 bats equals a homer. From the flock, take 1 sheep from every 200 being pastured in Israel. All these are to be used for grain offerings, burnt offerings, and peace offerings, to make atonement for them, says Adonai Elohim. All the people in the land are to present this offering to the prince in Israel. The prince's obligation will be to present the burnt offerings, grain offerings, and drink offerings at the feasts, on Rosh Chodesh and on Shabbat, at all the designated times of the house of Israel. He is to prepare the sin offerings, grain offerings, burnt offerings, and peace offerings, to make atonement for the house of Israel. Adonai Elohim says this: On the first day of the first month you are to take a young bull without defect and purify the sanctuary. The Kohen will take some of the blood from the sin offering and put it on the doorframes of the house, on the 4 corners of the altar's ledge, and on the supports of the gate of the inner courtyard. You are also to do this on the 7th day of the month for everyone who has sinned inadvertently or through ignorance. Thus you will make atonement for the house. On the 14th day of the first month you are to have the Pesach, Passover, a feast 7 days long. Matzah will be eaten. On that day the prince will provide for himself and for all the people of the land a young bull as a sin offering. On the 7 days of the feast he is to provide a burnt offering for Adonai, 7 young bulls and 7 rams without defect daily for the 7 days, and a male goat daily as a sin offering. He is to provide as a grain offering a bushel of grain for a young bull and a bushel for a ram, and for each bushel of grain a gallon of olive oil. On the 15th day of the 7th month, during the feast of Sukkot, he is to do the same thing for those 7 days in regard to the sin offerings, burnt offerings, and grain offerings, and olive oil.